Security, all those concerned, hands in Washington approaching Queens Gate, Long Beach, inbound for berth 140, port side 2, standing by channel 13, hands in Washington.
But even Vic doesn't dock a ship this size by himself. Help is at hand. The Marshall Foss is the most powerful tractor tugboat on the west coast of America. Just 30 meters long, she packs a screaming 6,250 horsepower in her twin engines. And with Captain Mark Walsh at the helm, her turning circle is really tight.
Marshall Foss. Hey Vic, how are you? Oh, okay, that sounds good. We'll catch you at the breakwater. Bye-bye.
A container ship is built to carry large loads long distances. These ladies aren't for turning. That's where the tugboat comes in.
Come to port 345.
345.
Good afternoon, Mark. We're ready for you. We'll take center lead aft.
Center lead aft, Roger.
And then put out about 100 feet of line.
Roger that.
The stern is the hardest part of the ship to maneuver, so that's where Vic asks the tug captain to attach his tow line.
The braking strength on this line is 880,000 pounds. This is what we stop the ship, we pull the ship, we push the ship and all that.
Now Vic is ready to maneuver the big ship. They're entering the basin, where they can turn her. There's just 30 meters of elbow room to rotate the ship 220 degrees. Difficult even for Vic to gauge. At Vic's command, Mark steers to starboard.
Marshall Foss, let's stop jackknife to direct full and make it three-quarter power.
And the Hanjin Washington's massive stern begins to swing around.
You're always on your toes. You're trying to work with the pilot, understand what he's going through.
Vic uses a small engine in the bow to help propel the ship around.
Marshall, go to 45 now.
But even with the turn almost complete, it isn't plain sailing. Vic has to guide the ship backwards, parallel parking behind another Hanjin Company vessel already tied up. And the stern of that ship is just 30 meters away.
The danger involved with this maneuver is when you're looking over the containers out towards the bow, is judging the distance. It's very difficult to do that.
Vic makes his judgments based on markings on the dock.
We want to try to get the bridge at the 500-foot mark on the dock. Yeah. Marshall, push dead slow, stern to port. Okay, Captain, good position. Welcome to Long Beach, sir. Okay, have a good day. The job done. Everybody's happy, no noise.
But Vic can never count on success. And as container ships grow even bigger, more challenges are sure to lie ahead.
Sponsoreret af Samsung.
At Denmark's Odense shipyard, a new generation of mega container ships are under construction. The Adrian Maersk is 43 meters longer and 2 meters deeper than the Hanjin Washington. More importantly, she can carry an extra 650 containers. More containers mean more profit. So her sister ship under construction in the next dock will be bigger yet. This new vessel, she doesn't have a name yet, will be capable of carrying an astounding 3,300 containers. It's the sheer size of the ship, rather than the complexity, that's the major construction challenge.
Building a ship is a rather simple process. We just have to bring in some 12,000 steel plates, clean them, and cut them into some 120,000 pieces, and weld them together.
The first step for any shipbuilding project: steel. Lots of it, enough to cover 8 football fields. Machines do a lot of the work here, like moving the plates to the work shed, where they ride on rollers to get cleaned. Step 2. The steel is cut into pre-designed shapes. That's done by computerized cutting torches, each one as hot as a lightning bolt. 2 technicians and a remote control do the work of 14 men in a fraction of the time. The work is done underwater, so the superheat of the torches doesn't bend the steel. Step 3. The steel is welded into sections. An army of robotic welders does most of the straight line welding. But the more intricate work must still be done by hand. These enormous honeycomb-like structures will form the ship's skeleton. Without them, the hull would crumble under the tremendous weight of the containers and the pressure of the waves. Once the sections are complete, fitting them together is a challenge. The 2 5-ton sections of the midship bulkhead must fit perfectly.
Der er maks 2 mm plads til begge sider. Så får du jo en lang linje. Ret den lige op, så I får den lige ind.
One slip here, and someone could lose a hand. Or worse. After the fitting, the welders set to work. When finished, this container ship will be the longest in the world. And an enormous challenge for container ports like Long Beach. Temporary berth for the Hanjin Washington. No longer at sea, the Hanjin Washington is less of a ship and more of a giant warehouse at one end of a huge assembly line. Her containers will need to be offloaded and sent by truck and train to destinations across America. While this goes on, she'll be reloaded with new containers destined for other ports. Time wasted costs the shipping company $7,500 an hour. Even worse, the shipper might lose its customers if it fails to deliver their cargo on time. With the ship due to leave port in 48 hours, this is a round-the-clock operation.
Okay, that's everything.
The superintendent of the night shift, Erin Pearson, gets the work started.
Steve, you copy Steve? I didn't copy that. Where are you?
In less than 2 hours, she must pull together paperwork for hundreds of containers being loaded and unloaded.
We don't have... Okay. Well, shoot.
And assemble a crew of 100 dockers and crane operators.
Okay, I had 4 originally. One's going to the other ship, and the H's are going to the ground. The big challenge right now, getting everyone out there and started by 6 o'clock. And then, okay.
You want to have the
She's made it. Just a couple of hours after the ship docked, the 48-hour countdown begins. For the ship to leave on time, Erin's crew will have to move 1,000 containers during their shift. And it's the crane operators who will be under the greatest pressure. Years ago, cargo came in sacks and crates, dock workers carried on their backs. Today, everything's in containers. The heavy lifting gets done by state-of-the-art gantry cranes costing $7 million each. With their 60-meter-long arms, they can reach across the bows of even the new megaships. The cranes grab onto containers with hooks that weigh 11 tons. Four latches lock onto the container's corners before it's swung high into the sky. Those latches are all that's holding that container.
We're moving a lot of heavy cargo. Things could fall. As you can see, it's a large operation, so you have to take all the safety precautions necessary.
Hit target, Erin will need her 3 cranes to each move 30 containers an hour. That's 1 every 2 minutes. But things are already falling behind schedule.
We got kind of a slow start tonight. Hopefully by the end of the night, we'll be closer to about 28 moves per hour, which would be a decent start for us. And we'll monitor it as we go.
As tough as Erin's job is now, it's only going to get tougher when the megaships arrive. She'll have to monitor even more cranes and more people. To carry more cargo, the new megaships will need more power. In Denmark, they're working on the crankshaft for the new ship's diesel engine, which will deliver a staggering 93,000 horsepower. Weighing 2,100 tons when fully assembled, it will be the world's largest ship engine. So big, it has to be made in 3 sections. Today, they're preparing the crankshaft to receive the engine block. The liquid sealant should ensure an airtight fit. A powerful crane is needed. But the engine block is so big and heavy, they don't even try to move it out of its storage shed. Instead, they take away the shed. 30 meters long, the engine contains 12 cylinders and pistons. Over 100 meters up in the crane cabin, operator Kjeld Madsen is under starter's orders. Now, the really hard part. The two sections must fit together with the precision of a Swiss watch. Hundreds of pre-drilled bolt holes need to line up perfectly. But the first bolt won't go in. The holes aren't matching up properly. The sections are 15 millimeters out of alignment. They have to try to shift the engine block.
We try to move it up again, and then we start from the middle, go out. We have a little problem on this middle of it.
After an hour, they're ready to try again. This time, the bolts do go through. They have just 6 more days to install the rest of the engine. Back at the hangar in Washington, the container yard is filling up. As Jeff O'Donnell, superintendent of the day shift, begins his rounds.
45, I'll line them up. Jeff or Tim?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Jeff on our aft crane, just getting into those 20.
On a day like today, we've probably got close to 1,000 containers that are going to be going into the yard. As you're putting stuff into the yard, we're also loading containers back, creating more space. It goes hand in hand. It's a big chess game. We got a lot of players involved with the chess game trying to make it happen, so it gets crazy.
On the ship's main deck, Jeff and his ship boss, Eric, go over the day's schedule. The containers have to be loaded and unloaded in proper sequence. If too many containers get taken off one side of the ship, she could become unbalanced and even roll over. It's Eric's job to make sure the crane operators get it right.
Eli, you wanted to stack the 3-eye?
And that no one gets hurt by flying containers. The 100-ton hatch covers slamming shut. With 1,000 containers to unload and 600 more to load, Jeff relies on his crane operators. James Moses is one of the best. He makes it look easy to lift a 29-ton container out of the hold, swing it off the ship, and place it on the back of a truck 40 meters below. That's why they pay crane operators big money, up to $200,000 a year.
This is my container, and the object of this game is for me to land it, to operate it. It's swinging. If the load is here, I have to come here for it to be stable. If it's over here and I'm back here, it's going to swing. So we're constantly up here jumping around to get over the load to land it. Now let's do it for real.
James controls the crane with a pair of high-tech joysticks.
I drop them all by eye with depth perception and a little coordination, a good signal man on the ground. Sometimes we lose them, they fall overboard, and sometimes it can be $1 million worth of computer parts. You just don't want to do that. if you get angry, irritated, or frustrated on this equipment, it will whoop you.
When the new megaships come in, James is going to need every bit of his patience and skill.
See, I need an inch. There it is.
With containers dropping at 3 meters a second, being a truck driver is a dangerous occupation. It takes a special kind of person to handle these risks. As always, Grandma knows best.
My name is Lata Stukan, and I'm working almost 7-8 years every day in Hanjin, and I love it. This is like my second family over here. We have sometimes barbecue, and we bring homemade cookies, and everybody love it.
Don't let Zlata's mild manner fool you. She's as tough as they come. She drives to the storage area 45 meters away, parks in the first available space, unhooks her load, attaches an empty chassis, and gets back in the queue as fast as she can. She makes the same circuit 30 times in an 8-hour shift. It will take a total of 24 trucks, not all of them driven by grandmothers, to unload and reload the Hanjin Washington. And everything will have to go smoothly if they're to do it in 48 hours. Huge storage yard at the port of Long Beach, California holds 8,000 containers. About half leave by truck for destinations across America. The other half leave on freight trains every night. But Rail Superintendent Tony Castaneda is facing a big problem with the Hanjin Washington cargo.
It's going to be a nightmare. Shouldn't be saying that. It's going to be a challenge.
There aren't enough empty cars to handle all the containers that need to go out by train.
We're going to be maybe running an hour and a half behind. Our trains might end up on the short side today because we're not going to be able to load everything that we want to load today.
And the crew have to stand around doing nothing.
We're not getting any production done, so we're losing time, we're losing money, we're falling behind. It just is a snowball effect. This cargo has to move.
If the Hanjin Washington's containers aren't on the train by the end of the day, there'll be a delay all down the line.
He's pulling forward right now.
Finally, an hour later, some good news.
Well, it looks like he's got his signal. He's getting ready to pull forward because there we go.
Now the pressure's really on for the yard crew. They have just 6 hours, not the regular 8, to load the containers onto the trains. That means it's time for the Rocky Quintana Show.
We're ready to rock and roll. We work here as a unit. Everybody watches each other's back. We got professional drivers here with us. It's a good day.
Rocky needs all her bravado to handle one of the most dangerous jobs on the waterfront. To secure the top containers to the bottom ones, she has to insert a locking mechanism at each corner.
We have to go from car to car, jumping up and down on the rails. So you have to be in pretty good shape to do this job.
With containers dropping all around her, Rocky is essentially playing in traffic.
you have to stay focused, because one false move, or if you're preoccupied, that can mean today you're not gonna go home.
Rocky has to put her trust in the guy running the top handler, the mobile crane that lifts the containers off the utility trucks and places them on the cars.
We rely on the top handler drivers to look out for us because our hands are going in there. He's got to make sure that we're clear before he loads us up.
Operating the top handler requires the nerves of a fighter pilot.
It's a 167,000-pound machine without a container on it. So you're over 100 tons when you're in motion with it. If you hit the brakes too hard because the weight is there, it will pull the machine over. You'll nose it over on its front end, on the nose. And it's happened quite a bit.
It's lunchtime, and Rocky and the gang have loaded only half the day's quota. Rail Superintendent Tony Castaneda is worried.
And after lunch, we will finish loading the rest of this train and load the second train for the Burlington and Santa Fe. So we're really up against the gun still.
Get slammed over there.
Back on board the Hanjin Washington, Superintendent Jeff O'Donnell has his own worries. His crew have been working as fast as safely possible, but with less than 25 hours to go, they are way behind schedule.
It's right about 5 o'clock right now. It's going to be a real rough finish, I'm thinking right now. It's going to be tight.
If Jeff can't figure a way to speed things up, the ship won't sail on time. Meanwhile, at the Odense shipyard, work on the new megaship is reaching a critical stage. A bulb-shaped structure must be attached to the ship's bow to reduce the impact of oncoming waves. So who'll have to handle the heavy lifting? One man, Stefan Rennerbod, with a little help from a very big crane.
Right now we're gonna lift the section up and turn it 45 degrees and then put it on the ship. Hvor så her. Vi 4 liter igen.
Shipbuilder Stefan Rennerbod radios the big crane to start lifting. All is going according to plan, until Stefan notices something badly wrong. The welders have forgotten to cut off 2 extra steel beams. Time for Stefan to get all fired up. With tons of steel dangling over his head, Stefan has to put a lot of trust in the crane operator. Now they can swing the wave breaker into place. And the pieces can finally be welded together. But that's not Stefan's job. He's off to tackle bigger things. It's the enormous size and scale of these ships that makes them so difficult to build. And such a problem for ports like Long Beach. To accommodate the new vessels, it's not enough to just buy some new cranes. The whole harbour needs a major makeover to the tune of $2 billion.
We've got a lot of projects going on here at the port. Our biggest project is right here at Pier T, where we're doing the last phase of wharf extension, getting ready for these larger vessels that'll be calling here at the Hanjin facility.
The Port Authority is extending Pier T by over 300 meters so that it can provide room for a total of 4 megaships. And that's a whole lot of work for the dredging crew.
We just dig, and that's what we do, and we like it.
Dredge foreman Curtis Sands and his crew have been digging up hundreds of thousands of tons of mud and sand to deepen the channel to 20 meters. Otherwise, the megaships would scrape the bottom. It's a job that requires enormous amounts of mechanical force.
There's about a 2,000 horsepower Caterpillar motor that powers a 2200 kW generator. Make electricity to light up about half a city here.
Along with dredging, they've had to install massive concrete piles to hold up the new wharf and the extra cranes.
That is probably the most critical element in the construction of the wharf. The cranes are getting bigger, the cranes are getting heavier. All the heavy loading are transferred into the piles.
Even with a new wharf, the mega containers will put enormous pressure on a system already under strain. Back at the rail yard, a derailment has brought work to a standstill.
They changed this wheel, and I don't think they set it down on the track, and so when they pulled on it, it pulled right off the track. They drug it about, I don't know, 1,000 yards. Luckily, the engineer was watching his mirror and he saw smoke coming out and he stopped the train.
At this point in time, changed the set of wheels and didn't set the wheels back down onto the track. So we've got a derailment.
They'll have to lift the derailed car off the track so the train can get moving again. The delay will cause Tony's crew to fall short of the day's quota of 530 moves.
I thought we had salvaged the day. We're only maybe 70 moves short of a regular day. Today's been an excellent day. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take tomorrow off.
Luckily, a shortfall this size won't slow down work at the dockside, where Jeff and his crew are nearing the end of their 8-hour shift. They've managed to offload and reload their quota of containers. If the night crew can just keep up the pace, the Hanjin Washington may yet sail on time tomorrow. But that's a big if. Back in Denmark, they're halfway through building the new megaship, with months of hard labor ahead. But 45 meters away, her sister ship, Adrian Maersk, is nearing her launch date. There's still a great deal to be done. The deckhouse must be sprayed to test if it's watertight. In the ship's operations center, they're testing the computer systems that will regulate everything from the engine's oil levels to the temperature in the refrigerated containers. In the engine room, time for elbow grease and grease cutter. The dock manager tries to keep everyone on schedule. The key mission of a container ship is to carry cargo. So this morning, shipbuilders Bo Christensen and Lars Konradsen must conduct a crucial test of the ship's cargo holds. They'll use a special test device, a yellow cage built to the exact dimensions of a standard 12-meter container. This will allow them to check tiny but important details. The crane operator maneuvers the test cage so it will slide into one of the pairs of rails that line the walls of the 23-meter deep cargo hold. Here, containers will be stacked 9 deep. Bo and Lars check the fit between rails and container. There can be no more than 4 millimeters clearance on either side, or they'll have to cut off the rails and reposition them, which could delay the completion date. They also measure the distance between the rails and a reference point on the container. Anything between 39 and 27 millimeters will be fine.
Have you got the right measurement?
If the other cargo holds pass the test and the rest of the work gets done, the Adrian Maersk could begin her sea trials in just 5 days. But to reach the sea, they'll first have to maneuver the ship out of the tiny harbour. It won't be easy. Back at Long Beach, with time running out, work on the Hanjin Washington is seriously behind schedule. Jeff, the day superintendent, has his hands full trying to finish on time.
It's not going good. Last night they had a bad night on it, and today we have a lot of discharge coming off the ship going to wheels, which always is a slower operation, especially when you throw the traffic out in the yard. And we'll be discharging up till probably 1700 today, 5 o'clock. So and that's on a finish up. That's a little scary because we call them must makes. We have to get the cargo off the ship and get all the cargo on the ship. So it'll go down to the wire.
Out on the dock, Jeff and Eric come up with a new plan. They've asked for more dock workers and another crane. But Jeff can never count on success.
You never know, a crane can break down, and that's the case. As you can see, the other ships are using all the cranes that we have, so hopefully I probably just curse myself by saying that, but I defy Murphy these days.
There's no time for anything else to go wrong if the Hanjin Washington is to sail on time.
Sponsoreret af Samsung.
Back in Denmark, the Adrian Maersk is ready to depart for its sea trials. Peter Koch will captain the ship when it reaches the open sea. But it's up to the pilot, Steen Finsen, to guide it out of the harbour.
The challenge here is that it's an enormous, huge ship, and the way we have to take it out is very bended and it's very narrow, and we have some limitations with wind and current.
The harbour is too shallow to start the propeller safely, so the ship will be moved out by tugboats. They've decided to tow her backwards, because there isn't enough deep water to turn her around.
Ja, slæbebåden Adrian, så begynder vi at sejle.
The first hour passes without incident. But the toughest part of the trip lies straight ahead. To reach open water, the pilot will have to slide the mammoth ship through the harbor's narrow entrance.
It's about 100 meters wide, and the ship is 43 meters wide. So we will have about 20 meters, 30 meters on the sides.
And as if that weren't difficult enough, they also need the tides to be just right.
If the current is coming in with a level about 1 knot, it's almost impossible to get out because it is working against the turn we have to do.
Finally, the pilot gives the signal to go. As the tugs rev up their engines, Captain Koch has some worries.
It'll be nice when this is over and then can start to breathe more freely.
The tugs are doing just 3 knots an hour. Even sped up 300 times, the enormous ship takes 15 seconds to go by. Finally, looking back over the ship's bow, the captain sees the harbor recede. They're through. But there's no time to celebrate. The massive engine has never been turned on. So they plan to test it in 2 steps. First, they'll force compressed air through the engine to see if the steel drive shaft will turn the propeller. If that works, they'll wait a few hours before firing up the engines with diesel fuel. Only then can the Adrian Maersk sail under its own power and begin its sea trials. The captain has just given the signal to start the test. If everything goes well, the Adrian Maersk will be calling in at container ports around the world just a few weeks from now. Back at Long Beach, it looks like Jeff's luck has finally turned.
It's now 18:30 on Wednesday night, and we're finished. The last couple hours actually went really smooth. Cargo operations done and lashing approved by the chief mate, so we're good to go. That's it. All completed.
$2,760 containers moved off, and 1,363 containers put back on in just 48.5 hours. But the numbers are going to keep growing. By the year 2010, most of the container ships calling at Long Beach will be the size of the Adrian Maersk, and bigger. The days of the Hanjin Washington are numbered. Make way for the mega ships.
VM 2006 på DAB Radio.
Alles ist Fußball!
Tænk, hvis en mikroskopisk lægerobot kunne afpatruljere vores krop og forhindre sygdom. Mere om det lige nu på DR2. Her på DR1 går 2 journalister undercover for at afsløre, hvad der foregår bag Ryanairs indtjekningsskranke.
De har ændret hele begrebet flyrejser, takket være stadigt faldende priser. Men er den stramme omkostningsstyring i Europas hurtigst voksende flyselskab ved at bringe dem ud i problemer? Vi vil afsløre sjusk og fejl med sikkerheden og dårlig passagerservice, et resultat af Ryanairs bestræbelser på billige billetter og større profit. I 5,5 måneder har Channel 4's Dispatches lavet skjulte optagelser i det irske flyselskab.
Everyday philosophy here. Passengers don't matter.